Hello again. I'm Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac, here recapping Ted Lasso seasons 1 and 2 out of our season 3 premiere this very week. I am joined, as last time, by my good pal, Russell Davis.
Hi, I'm Russell Davis, not of Cult of Mac, but of Cult of Russ. I run my own cult. I'm a little like Jared Leto. We meet on an island once or twice every year. There are massive at our next retreat.
Interesting. I wonder how much of that will make it into the final cut. Spoiler alert, not very much. Maybe I'll leave this in, though, and just let it to your imaginations. It's Ted Lasso Season 2, everybody. You can watch a recap of Season 1 somewhere. If you click around, you can find it. You're smart. Maybe it'll be right here, or down there, or over there. Who knows where it'll be?
That fits with our... I believe in your ability to find these buttons that Griffin is talking about. You can do it. With that being said, let's believe in ourselves and talk about Ted Lasso.
We both love Season 1. I've often described it to friends as like a really tight, like, Gordian's knot of plot and character development. It's all intertwined. Not like a single line of dialogue is wasted, really. It's just such a perfect season of television. Maybe not the best television ever, but just a perfectly architected season.
Yeah, no, for what it is, for the type of television show that it is, the type of story that it's trying to tell, I'm right there with you. I think season 1 is maybe some of the tightest sitcom storytelling, this side of Clone High or The Simpsons or anything I would say is mildly comparable.
Season 2 is not that, in my opinion.
No, I'm actually there with you.
It took me a long time to figure out what exactly didn't stick the landing with season 2. And I think I've nailed it down. Like in season 1, from the architecture of the show, that you have Ted versus Rebecca, and you have that sort of season-long structure as he gets them on his side, not for any malicious reason, but just to make them better people. It's an upward battle that they face. But where do you go from the top of the hill without turning to standard sitcom, inconsequential problem of the week territory, which I think season 2 gets a little close to.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I just want to say I still think season 2 is a pretty solid season of TV. But I agree with you. I think it
Ted enters a room and everybody does that like standard sitcom. Oh, Ted. Like, are you surprised to see him? He works here. It's not a party that's he's shown up to here.
I mean, the most obvious thing is there's an immediate darkness to season 2, which it immediately and very quickly plays into with the obvious, the killing of the dog in that first episode. Inadvertent, accidental, but it just happens. And that's an immediate tone setter, as it should be, as it's meant to be. That unto itself is not a problem. A tone shift is not inherently an issue. I do agree that I think season 2, it definitely comes at you with a bit of a different vibe. It's definitely a different feel. It's definitely a different tone. It's most certainly trying to play a bit of a different game.
So we start the season. Richmond has been relegated as well. If you're not familiar with the football tiers, it's basically as if an NFL team has been kicked down to being a college team.
Or sort of like a Major League Baseball team getting bumped down to a minor league.
We open with Danny Rojas killing their mascot dog, Earl. This gives Danny the yips, as it is known in the sports world,
in the sports industry. Yeah.
Leading them to bring in a sports psychologist, Dr. Fieldstone, who brings a very interesting sort of dynamic to the show. In season 1, we see Ted do his charming sort of work on the crew around us. And in Dr. Fieldstone, we see that fall flat on its face. They have like a very sort of awkward introduction to each other.
She is just not about his happy-go-lucky sort of nonsense. Ted is kind of like the self-help book you pick up at Barnes & Noble. Dr. Fieldstone's the actual therapist you go to when you want to start getting serious.
So much of season 1 is about showing how big of a change a Ted Lasso-like attitude can have on your personal success. And I think season 2 is all about showing the limits of the Ted Lasso way.
Ted himself, we see throughout the show, is clearly not 100% mentally healthy himself, and that's not a judgment on Ted, just an observation.
Mm-hmm.
If season 1 is Ted offering help, season 2 is about Ted asking for help.
Yeah, season 2 very much deconstructs why Ted is the way that he is. And Sharon Fieldstone is like the surrogate for that for the audience, because he tries to pull the same charming trick he did on Rebecca. And she's like, interesting, you're using your humor to try and get me to open up.
How does he use those to both better himself and better others? And then at the same time, in what ways are they detrimental to him? In what ways do they keep him from perhaps being even the best version? It sounds crazy to think there's a better version of Ted Lasso, and yet, I think what season 2 is about is revealing that even Ted Lasso has a better version of himself inside of him.
Ted's conversations with Rebecca really highlight that. After initially meeting Dr. Fieldstone, we see how, in episode 1, how big of a difference Dr. Fieldstone's approach can have on the players. We cut to Ted and Rebecca having a very much season 1-esque discussion where they don't really address their feelings or underlying issues at all, and they're not really being honest with each other. One
of the things I think is most interesting about season 2 for me is watching, like you said, deconstruct him, but still keep him intact. It's not out to break him down necessarily. It's just out looking at the parts of the machine and knowing what each one does in more detail.
That's not the only new character, though. We have a new player on the team. His name is Jan Maas. I love how he's introduced as well.
But I didn't make any mistakes. Only you played poorly.
Oh, wow. Oh. Hey, guys, Jan Maas is not being rude. He's just being Dutch.
And that's sort of his thing as a character.
I think part of what makes this show is that so much of it is just about watching different types of people interact with each other, and really, I think Jan Maas is fun because Jan Maas is kind of like a rare rude character in this show, but who is still loved even in spite of, or even at times because of how blunt he can be, how matter of fact he is.
Yeah, he adds a really fun dynamic to the whole team. Cut to Roy Kent on his personal journey. He doesn't really know what he wants to do with himself. Keeley pushes him to go on this Sky Sports program. So I believe the two talking heads that they have on there are the real people on the show, with the addition of course, the prior coach of Richmond that we saw like very briefly in the first scene of season 1 there with Roy as well. It's like a recurring bit of him like swearing on the show and not really fitting in with the other hosts remotely. And I just love watching it so much. It's funny every single time they do it.
Part of what I like about this show is that it's able to take that, what I have to imagine is a pretty specific sort of experience, and making that more universal, more widely, something that we can all kind of talk about and relate to and understand.
Yeah. Cut to Jamie Tart. He's on a bit of a bend. He's going on reality TV shows. They don't want him back at Manchester City. But Richmond doesn't exactly take him back with open arms either. Beard and Nate and Higgins are all very apprehensive bringing him back. Sam Obasanya, one of their lead kickers, finds out that they're in talks of bringing him back, and he has a very frank conversation with Ted, where he sort of voices many of the other players on the team and says that they would not very much appreciate the former bully of the team coming to play again.
I think that conversation between Sam and Ted is kind of a watermark moment for the show, is kind of really important. Just really seeing someone like give it to Ted straight, that just I think it takes major guts and major courage for Sam at that point in the season to come and be that blunt about the fact that like we don't want Jamie back, and we have good reason for that. And I think it's fascinating. I think a hugely fascinating part of the season is the fact that Ted doesn't listen to them.
Yeah. What season 2 redefines as being the Lasso way is that, yes, you hear everybody out and you hear their opinions, but he does ultimately bring Jamie back because it's the best for the team anyways.
Even Ted Lasso, as much as he wants to be Mr. Listen, as much as he wants to be Mr. I hear everybody, but he has to put his foot down.
And what I love about this show is that that's not the end of it. Like in the next episode, we see Sam and Jamie is not fitting in. They take their time on this plot line. Cut to Nate, now an assistant coach of the team. We see a few little hints dropped in this first half of the season. There's a plot line where he is trying to get a table at a restaurant for his parents on their anniversary.
Yes.
And the first half of that episode is like very much like a classic, oh, hilarious, shy little Nate. But you're not cheering for him when he succeeds.
No, you start to see what they're starting in season 1. You start to see that really start to pay off in season 2.
I think it's an important point in the season, though, that in the next episode, I believe they're at an FA Cup championship game. As much as we see Nate personally fumble, I think it's very important to remind the audience that he is a good coach with good strategies. As Ted has a panic attack during the game and has to leave, Nate takes control, and his strategy scores the team a point, and they win the FA Cup championship.
A lot of shows, when they do this thing where they kind of show the decline of a character, it's a very fast decline. But you see him take these pieces and these certain parts from Ted and these certain pieces of advice and knowledge, but then you just see him kick others to the curb, very realistically, I say, but he doesn't lose the ability to be a good coach.
As a response to their lessening budget, as being a relegated team, they take on a new sponsor with Banter, this dating app. Rebecca has been on Banter. You've seen her sort of chatting up this mysterious individual throughout the season, but then it's revealed that it is Sam Obasanya. This is the episode wherein they go on their first sort of date together. Let me just say, Sam is so damn charming. He could probably get me to go on a date with him too.
I love the Sam Rebecca relationship personally. I think they develop it well. I don't have a whole lot to say about it other than I'm kind of all for it. Yeah, I like it. I think the Rebecca and Sam relationship is kind of an interesting examination of sexual politics in the workplace. I think it's genuinely a little bold and a little interesting to watch a sitcom that generally traffics in kind of the feel-good nature of Ted Lasso actually deal with something like this.
And in the very same episode, we go back to the Ted and Sharon plot line as Dr. Fieldstone is hit by a car. She's put in the hospital. Ted goes to check up on her and pick her up and, take her back to her apartment. And this is, I think, the turning point in their relationship as well, setting up their relationship in the second half of the season. Dr. Fieldstone also has to realize that she needs to open up to Ted just as much as he needs to open up to her. Dr. Fieldstone's plotline, I think, is maybe my favorite in the season.
Season 1 had Rebecca as our main character who is a counter and a foil. Now, she's on the same team as Ted, more or less. And one of the things I like about Fieldstone is that she comes in and is a very similar role functionally, but a very different role personality-wise. She's very much her own character and very much presents her own series of foils to Ted. Watching Ted, a man who you would think would be so into this whole idea of like talking your feelings out, right? Like that would probably be like right up his alley. Oh yeah, you sit down, you talk about things, you work through it, and then when you're done, you get to have a hug and drink some chocolate milk or something, right? Like that sounds like a very Ted Lasso type of mentality to have. So to learn as quickly as we do, actually know he's highly skeptical of therapy, and then to learn further that that's because of his own singular experience with a therapist in the past, being this, the couples counseling. Yeah. Watching him develop, watching him evolve throughout the season, watching that relationship grow and change is one of my favorite aspects of it. And I'll be 100% honest, myself included. I've seen a therapist or two and have come out of at least one of them not particularly feeling like it helped me that much. I think it's valuable to have a show on TV right now using its sense of humor to do stuff in that realm and tell stories in that realm.
Cut to, in the very same episode, Jamie Tart. This is, of course, wherein Richmond is going to play Man City, which Jamie used to play on. We see Jamie's dad come back. He's, of course, attending this game, wearing Man City gear, sitting in the Man City section. And we have this extremely powerful scene at the end where Jamie's dad comes by to the locker room and he's harassing the team. And what I love especially about the scene is that it's completely silent. There's no music. Everybody's just staring. Nobody knows how to react to this presence that he has as he's just like tearing down his son in front of everybody.
That scene is just heart-wrenching and one of the like hardest scenes in Ted Lasso.
So it's Beard who throws him out of the door and into the door as well. It's Roy who goes over and hugs Jamie in like the aftershock of that event. It's Ted who runs out of the room and calls Dr. Sharon as it surely brings up some trauma in his past life with dealing with the loss of his father, who we learn committed suicide.
It's a great bit of character writing, and really remembering that like it's not a soccer show. Like yes, it is that, but I think what sets Ted Lasso apart is that that's not really its crux. Mm-hmm. It's about people.
Mm-hmm. So we enter the second half of the season with a funeral episode. It is Rebecca's father who's died. Pretty comedic moment. We have the whole team deciding that they're going to go to the funeral as well, and
yeah,
they have this hilarious conversation about dress shoes.
Where do you get dress shoes?
I don't have time to stand in line at midnight and wait till morning to buy new shoes.
You don't have to do that for shoes like these, mate. Nobody wants them.
Danny Rojas looks like he's been saran wrapped or something, walking around in this suit. Rebecca reveals that she's dating Sam, and in the same episode, she decides that she wants to go on a break with their relationship. As a way of wrapping up their storyline, Edwin Akufu is this billionaire from Ghana who would like to build a national team based in Africa. He would like to buy Sam off of Richmond. He takes him out for dinner. They're in a museum. This is a way of making it explicit in the plot, showing Sam and Rebecca's growth as characters as you have this new plot thread that's trying to pull him away. We go back to Nate, and in this episode he's being prodded by Jan Maas about how he's still wearing a suit that Ted bought for him last season, which leads him to go suit shopping of his own, so he goes with Keeley, which does instill him with the worst kind of confidence as he tries to kiss Keeley.
Going back to what I was saying about the Rebecca and Sam plotline, the extension of that to me is kind of the Nate and Keeley stuff, where we see Nate kind of start to hit on Keeley, and like I feel like we are seeing kind of the flip side, to the Rebecca and Sam storyline. In one, we're seeing a relationship that, yes, technically, professionally speaking, is not out of the clear as far as potential accusations of quid pro quo are concerned. But, we're given the context as an audience, like they're both into it. Whereas Keeley and Nate, obviously, very different side of the same coin. Nate is inappropriately hitting on Keeley, and we see like there's murky at worst way to kind of do this inter-office relationship thing, and there's a way to do this where it's creepy and gross and not cool in any way at all. Like there's no debate there, which means it's a confidence born out of stupidity and arrogance, as opposed to a confidence built out of any sort of genuine, interesting human characteristics.
Riding off that, Nate feels like he's being kicked down everywhere he goes, so he leaks to Trent Krim about the truth of Ted's panic attacks. Ted, of course, has been having like panic attacks at the funeral and all that.
Some of those panic attack scenes are my absolute favorite scenes in the whole show, just in their depiction of a panic attack as someone who has had to walk out of situations for various reasons, because I think it gets it really right, and I think it's important that we have something like this on TV. It's a beautiful show.
So we resolve the Sam and Rebecca line. Predictably, Sam declines Edwin Akufu's offer. I mean, we all knew what was going to happen. Akufu was really only there just to show for the audience how Sam has grown and how important Richmond is to him.
Similar to a lot of stuff about season 2, I like exploring the idea of sponsorships, the ethics thereof, through the lens of Sam as a character, and having that very personal kind of issue and conflict he has with Dubai Air and like what they're doing and how they're hurting his home region. How do you take something that is such like a personal issue with a gigantic corporation owned by this person? Well, I have this professional obligation and I have this thing that I either want to sign on to do or think might help me in my career. And then you have to juggle that with just, your own personal morals and ethics.
Some good does come out of it. It does inspire Sam to open up his own Nigerian restaurant in Richmond.
Yeah, that too.
Which we'll probably see more of in season 3. The Nate and Ted relationship boils over. Richmond is using Nate's strategy going into the final match of running a false 9. Nate is both upset when they try doing it, and he doesn't feel like the team is pulling through on his idea. And he's upset when it does work, as he feels like Ted's going to take the credit. So we have this scene between Ted and Nate where Nate says,
You made me feel like I was the most important person in the whole world. And then you abandoned me.
As accurate as that may or may not be.
Watching Nate go through this throughout the season, I don't think he was as relegated as he thinks he was. Watching Nate go from this kind of unassuming character to this person who yes is more confident in his own skin, but at what cost?
At what point? At what point in season 1 did his shyness help him more than he thought it?
Yeah,
more than he knew that it was.
Yeah, because once we see that he feels more empowered to speak, we see him abuse that power, right? And it's framed as like a bit of a triumph even for Nate to like finally get this off his chest. The scene itself knows that Nate's not 100% in the right. It also just knows that he's earned it that one time. I think season 2 is kind of watching Nate come to the wrong conclusion and think that what that meant was not you get this free pass once, more you get this free pass every time, use it often, and use it well.
There have been hints of this throughout the season. Nate defects to Manchester United with Rupert, who has now purchased the team, with him as the head coach. And that's where we leave off, going into season 3. This has been our summary of season 2. I'm D. Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac. I've been joined by Russell Davis, who you can follow at Very Funny Doofus on Twitter.
Follow me if you want. Don't if you don't. I'm kind of stupid, so you're not missing much. Nice talking with you, Griff.
Nice talking with you, Russell.